Thank you, Mr. Carr. We're mixing things up a little bit today, so with the absence of our chair and some other board members. So good afternoon and welcome to the Scottsdale Development Review Board public meeting. The purpose of the Development Review Board is to maintain the quality of development in Scottsdale by reviewing all of the design aspects of a proposed development and the relationship of its design components to the surrounding environment and community. The board also reviews all preliminary plats for subdivisions to assure conformance to policies and ordinance requirements. The agenda consists of the roll call, public comment on non-agendized items, an administrative report, minutes approval of the prior meeting, and action items. A roll call vote will be taken after each item's motion. The liaison will call each board member's name to indicate their desired vote for that item. After the vote has been counted, the liaison may read out the final vote. Citizens wishing to speak during public comment time or to speak specifically on any agenda item may fill out a blue request to speak card to the staff table before the agenda item is to be discussed. Citizens interested in submitting a written comment may submit a yellow written comments card to the person at the staff table. When called, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and then begin speaking. Groups wishing to speak should elect a spokesperson to represent the views of the group. To facilitate that meeting, your comment will be limited to 3 minutes for individual speakers with 1 additional minute for each additional individual present at the meeting who has contributed their time to a representative speaker, or up to a total of 10 minutes. I remind our audience that the board's review relates to design matters, and does not include consideration of existing zoning district designations, zoning entitlements, or the allowed uses within the zoning districts. The board's motion may be to approve with modified stipulations, to deny the request, or to continue the case. Thank you for the time and interest. We'll begin with the roll call.
Board Member Craig.
Here.
Board Member Fakih.
Here.
Board Member Gishgari.
Here.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
4 present. Thank you.
All righty. Sorry. Roll call. Public comment. Mr. Carr, do we have any non-agendized comment?
We do not. I don't believe we have any comment for non-agendized items today.
Okay, great. How about an administrative report?
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for joining this today. I know it's a little bit difficult, obviously, with vacations, so I appreciate your attendance. And obviously, Mr. Fakih, far away, attending today telephonically. Appreciate that as well. Just wanted to note that we will be having a hearing in 2 weeks on August 3rd. So any items from today and any new items will be heard on August 3rd. Thank you.
Very good. We need to approve minutes from the last meeting of July 6th. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the July 6, 2023 meeting minute as noted. Thank you.
I'll second. Thank you. Could we have a vote?
Board Member Craig.
Yes.
Board Member Fakih. Board Member Fakih.
Let's give it one moment there. I heard that he was still on the line. So just maybe ask one more time if Board Member Fakih could give a vote on the minutes.
Board Member Fakih, are you there?
Apologize, Board Member Craig. Let's wait a moment because if we do not have Mr. Fakih on the line, we'll have to suspend the meeting and try to get him back. Or otherwise, we'll have to put the meeting on hold without a quorum.
So, just so you know, the bylaws require a quorum to hold a meeting or a study session, and that consists of 4 members, at least one of which has to be a council or planning commissioner. So we have the planning commissioner, we're down 1 member, so we can't officially start the meeting until we have a quorum.
So it appears that our technology group said that the call just dropped, so hopefully we can get him back on the line here shortly. And we hear the phone ringing now, so hopefully that's him.
Yes, I can hear.
All right, we will recommence with the vote on the meeting minutes approval, which were, I think there was a motion and a second, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, Mr. Curtis.
Board Member Craig?
Yes.
Board Member Faki?
Yes.
Board Member Gishgari?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Minutes approved. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Action items for today. We have 1 consent agenda item and 1 regular agenda item. Are there any comments from board members about the consent agenda item? Can we get a motion on that?
Sure, I'll move to approve case 56DR 2018, number 2, per the staff recommended stipulations after finding that development applications meet the applicable Development Review Board criteria.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Board Member Craig?
Yes?
Board Member Faki?
Yes.
Board Member Gishgari?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Very good. Moving on to our regular agenda item, 45 DR 22, the Evans Corporate Park color branding. Okay, very good. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Craig, Commissioner Young, board members. I'm Casey Steinke, planner, City of Scottsdale, here for case 45 DR 2022, the Evans Corporate Park color branding. And you can see the site location here in the Greater Air Park area, generally west of the intersection of Raintree and Northside Boulevard. And closer up, we can see that the site is comprised of 6 existing multi-tenant commercial and industrial buildings along Evans Road. And this site is zoned I-1 Industrial Park, similar with the surrounding uses. As a quick refresher, last time this board met was in February, where you voted unanimously to continue this item and directed the applicant to work with staff on revising the color scheme with specific emphasis on lowering the light reflective value of that then dominant white body color. Here for reference is the original building, what it looked like, and then the previous color proposal. So with respect to the revisions since that time, the applicants have replaced that white color with a more beige cream wave. This has effectively reduced the LRV from that white body from a 93 to a 67. The cream wave has also extended lower than the white previously did and kind of taken away, covered that central gray accent band that was part of the original proposal. So again, here was the first iteration and what that looked like, which we can compare to the current revised version. I'll also note that we did have one board member submit comments on this currently revised color scheme. But with that, the applicants do request approval for this exterior repaint for this existing set of buildings at 8350 East Evans Road. And that concludes staff presentation. We also have the property owners here to answer questions if needed.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stinky. Any comments by the board? So,
Just, yeah, go ahead. Excuse me, real quickly, Board Member Craig, we want to take a real quick recess to make sure we're on the same page with some of that correspondence that was received. So if you would, please just formally break into a recess for about 3 minutes. Okay, Board Member Craig, we are ready to reconvene when you are. Oh, and we will need to do a roll call again to make sure all members are present again as we reconvene.
okay, thanks.
Board Member Craig.
Here.
Board Member Faki. Board Member Faki.
Yes, here.
Board Member Gishgari.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Young.
Yes, here.
4 present. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Patia, did you have?
I do have.
Okay.
So it's been brought to my attention that Vice Chair Brandt had prepared a statement. He's not here to make that, but he had given it to city staff to be read into the public record on the item that's currently being considered, which for the record is 45 DR 2022, the Evans Corporate Park color branding. It's okay. I've been made aware that the applicant's representative has been given a copy of that and been told about that ahead of time. We've had a discussion off the record as to whether the applicant representative is prepared to address or make comments about that. I've been given assurance that this can move forward. The applicant is prepared to address any of the comments that are in that record, in that statement by Vice Chair Brandt. And so at this time, I think, before the applicant is making a presentation, we'll have that statement read into the record, and she can then have the opportunity to make her comments in clarifying anything that's in that. So at this time, we'll have city staff read that comment into the record from Chairman Brandt.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Brand, this was on
Vice Chair Brandt.
Vice Chair Brand on July 14th wrote regarding this case, I think the modified color choices are better in line with Scottsdale desert tone parameters. The placement of the red color is still bothersome how it is currently presented. A tone like red should be used in accent or highlighted areas. Its current use as a stripe around the base of the entire building perimeter is not acceptable. The dark gray color could replace the red strip on the sides and back of the building, and the red should remain at highlighted areas, points of entry. It should be noted that using paint as striping on a building is not acceptable in Scottsdale. Paint is intended to be used to create base and top conditions that accent a building mass. Paint striping as presented in this case is not acceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. I think we do have a couple questions. If the applicant would like to come to the podium, please. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Yes, for your record, my name is Lynn Lagarde, 6190 North 28th Place in Phoenix. Some of you, staff, and Mr. Kashgari know me from a previous life. I practiced zoning law for 30 years in the city, and I'm retired. I'm no longer practicing law. But when I have friends like Pam Collins and her husband Joe, who I've known for years, who run into glitches because this is not their area of expertise, I agreed to help. First of all, Pam is the property manager of these buildings, was directed by the owners to paint the buildings that they have maybe fewer than 10 scattered throughout the valley. Same colors. It would make it easier for maintenance, et cetera. Their use of the word branding was seriously unfortunate. It's a word that none of us in Scottsdale would ever use. It's not like it's a Circle K or a Shell or anything like that. And Ms. Collins was also not familiar with the design guidelines, LRV. There was no intent to get around city process or not comply. So based on what we were told, the concerns of the DRB were, and you can put the new colors on, Brad, the next exhibit. We changed that white to a desert beige, which is much more the muted tone that Scottsdale wants, and the LRV is 67, which is the lowest sort of in that beige color. We were not aware of this other concern because, frankly, it wasn't raised at the other meeting. So I'm not well prepared with graphics to tell you, but I will say this. We have a little bit of a difference of opinion as to what is striping and layering of paint to designate the base of the building. I respect Mr. Brand's opinion as an architect, but for 30 years I worked with architects. If I got 6 of them in the room, I'd have 6 different opinions. One architect may see it as adding detail and interest to a building that anchors the base with that paint color that is even with the window line. So this is not a stripe, it's wide. It matches the line of the windows, and it keeps the building from looking like the back of a warehouse or the back of a Walmart. And I'll show you the previous building. And Brad told me that you still use Elmo. But you can see how unattractive that is. One bland color. It just, there's no interest. It looks like a warehouse. We think if we add the detail, if you can put that one back up for me, Brad, with that layer of maroon, and by the way, I've been out there. It's not bright red, it's maroon. We think that that is architecturally more interesting. We think it makes it look more like an office building and not like the back of a warehouse. So we frankly think it makes the building look better. And we contend that that is not a stripe. The stripe is a narrow, and I know what Scottsdale means by a stripe. I did it for a long time. That's not a stripe. That's anchoring the base of the building with a different color layer. We'd like to keep it. We think it adds to the attractiveness of our building. And if you have questions, fine. I'm a little bit out of practice.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lagarde. Questions?
I do have one question. So has the building been painted already? And I apologize, I wasn't at the first meeting.
That's all right, neither was I. It was painted. They had a project to paint their buildings, and they just painted it. It was like Pam thought, you know, I can paint my house. She really legitimately did not know. And so it was painted, and then we, of course, came through the process and wanted to be responsive to the main concern that the board expressed, which was the white and the high LRV.
Okay, so currently it is this scheme 16?
No.
Well, this is the proposed.
This is what we're proposing now. This is the beige color with the maroon layer at the base that designates the base of the building, and then there's a band at the top. We've removed the other band, so we've increased the beige color of the building. And there was a band at the lower place that looked more like striping, but this is not striping at the base of our building.
Okay, so right now the building is painted like this scheme 16?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Mr. Chairman, before I make a comment, I have a comment. Is there any public comment? Because I'd like to reserve my comment until the public comment is done.
I was told no, but Mr. Carr. Yeah.
We do not have any public comment on this.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Back to Vice Chair Brand's comment about red. I personally am not a favor of red color, personally, but I don't see this as a color of red. I see it as a rustic color. And that's what, to me, that's an attractive color. So I don't view this color as red, because as I said earlier, I'm not a fan of red, but that is not a red color. So this is a rustic color. So I'm in support of this case with respect to the comment that was made by the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gishgari. So I was at the last hearing, and thank you again for showing up and for modifying your plan. And, you know, when I look at this, and I do like the beige, softer, warmer tone on the building, and I'll agree with Board Member Gishgari about the red. I'm wondering if the banding, losing the banding, if you could maybe, I don't know, if it would go back, how that would look at the bottom of the beige above the red.
The gray banding there.
Yeah, you know, you removed it from,
We may have a graphic that shows
and
that.
we see it here, but with the white. And I'm just wondering, and I don't know if any other board members might agree or disagree. I feel like,
You would prefer the lower gray
well,
band.
I'm wondering if,
And
if
we
I would
we
prefer
did
it.
have a version that had that, and I'm just not sure if my clients kept it. Yes.
similar to this right here, but with the beige in there instead. And I don't know what you all would think about that. If not,
I'll just use, and this is a little dark, but it gives you the idea that it's actually the same light color, but because this is, it just looks to me like the colors on is true, because I can't show it to you like I would if I had a slide. But that would be reinserting the gray at the bottom. But we really would like to keep what we also don't consider red. I called it more maroon when I was out there looking at it, at the bottom, because we really think it anchors the building, emphasizes the windows, and again, makes it not look like the back of a building.
sure. And thank you for this. And I'm looking
So-
at this one here too.
I guess our request is that you approve the case per the staff's recommendation,
Yes, thank you.
to make it easy,
Thank you.
or adding that lower level. We would agree with adding that lower level.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I guess just a comment. in another life, I did 6 years on the DRB. And back then, and I would consider the maroon or rust or whatever this is to be more of an accent color. And that was more limited to being used at building entrances or key areas on the buildings. And it looks like things have evolved a little bit, and a little more freedom and latitude's been allowed with use of some of those colors. As far as banding, I mean, yeah, there's some stripes on this building, whether they're narrow or they're wide. However, with the red, or we're calling it red, you know, we've got the dark windows, and I haven't been out to the property. Are the windows that dark? Are they tinted that dark? And maybe Mr. Steinke could answer the question.
I think the applicant is saying that they're not as dark as shown in the picture. They might have some tint on there, but they're not, probably not that dark.
Well, and when I see that, it kind of breaks up that band, and it doesn't feel so much like a band. The one thing that we're not seeing is that there's 4 sides to all these buildings, and right now we're seeing the one side that's I'll call it the public side towards the parking lot, but then there's other sides that are going to be the backs of the buildings that really aren't going to be seen, and then there's going to be sides of the buildings that we see a portion of that right here, where that striping is really going to be more profound. Has there been any other exhibits that were done for 4-sided elevations with these color schemes on there, just to kind of understand what that's going to look like? And I'm assuming that you maybe studied that?
I did not see them. I don't think we had any originally submitted, because it wasn't like a full-on submittal like you would for a normal, when we're building the building for DRB. I'm trying to think if, Brad, could you maybe put the site plan up, the aerial that shows the building in the context? Because most of the building, the front of the building is, okay, is sort of what we're seeing. And the building is broken up. And you will see that it is, in some cases, adjacent to the back of buildings. You'll see where the sides of the building are. We again think that it's far more attractive to have that rust base layer at the bottom than just a blank beige building there.
So is it all 6 buildings that have been painted?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. So the ones that face onto Evans Road, are there windows that face onto Evans?
Minimal windows, yes. There are some windows on Evans Road.
Okay. I guess the one hesitancy, I mean, I don't want it just to appear like the side of a Costco with the
Right.
stripe.
No, neither do we.
And without like understanding what that's going to look like from the public right-of-way, I think that's going to be probably your most important elevation, at least from the public's view. And we've only got one view of, and I'm not even sure which of the 6 buildings that's a view of.
Which is building F, Pam? Which building are we looking at, so we know? Upper right, let me,
You can use the mouse, I believe, to,
oh, it does. All right, that one, Pam? What's that? Oh, I see.
so the red banding in the middle, because we have the gray, if you will,
If you put
base.
if you put the gray,
Right,
yeah.
and then the red will be a consistent height around all buildings.
Yes, of the windows. It's the
all
height of the
sides.
windows.
Okay.
So that's why we don't consider it a stripe. I mean, if you look at the actual, what we're proposing, it's the height of those windows. Do you want to put that one up again, Brad, what we're proposing? it was attachment 9 on mine. Brad will get it for us. One more. 22, no, one more, that one.
So
But again, if you felt that that lower gray above the windows was something you wanted to put in, we would happily do that.
Yeah, I have no problem with the base gray above the, or below the red. I'm okay without that band of gray above the red.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. But Board Member Young makes a good point about have all the buildings then been repainted, or is just this one here been repainted?
They've all been repainted.
They've all
I
been
can answer that. And again, I would call your attention to this exhibit and look at the cars. That will give you an idea of the relative height and dimension of width of that layer. It is not a stripe. It is a base layer.
Yeah, okay, sorry,
So that's,
Maybe
I
it's
just want
semantics
to
right
emphasize
now.
that so that maybe you'll hopefully agree that it's appropriate.
sure, thank you. You know, Board Member Young, Commissioner Young makes a really good point about, we're looking at this from one spot when there are 6 buildings with 4+ sides on each building, and the important view is coming from the right-of-way at Evans Road, and as well as probably a lot of other parking lots to the east and west, I want to say, if north is up on that map, from adjacent buildings, and not knowing what the exterior surroundings are mostly on those buildings, I'd be really interested to see photographs of those areas, but, you know, comments are welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say I don't necessarily have an issue with the proposed new colors that are coming in. The concern that I've got is the composition of those colors on some of the facades of the building that have no windows, because I think those are going to come across more as stripes rather than in this particular image, which is a good example for arguing that it's not a stripe because it's broken up with those windows. However, when you get to some of the long elevations of those buildings, these are going to look like stripes. Of course.
Each of the suites of the building has a set of back doors, which are also pointed the rust, maroon, whatever we want to call it, color. So again, that, what, you know, we argue is not a stripe or a band, it's the height of those doors. It's high. It's a base, we really believe it to be a base layer because of the height, and that height is consistent all around the building.
Well, I guess just to follow up on that, in previous comments, I think it would be at least given some peace of mind to have an understanding of what those elevations look like, which might just be that you take some photographs of the building, assemble it in some kind of a presentation so that we can see those bay doors that, you know, if they are in fact painted that color. I'm sure they are, but it would be nice to have that on the public record that those are in fact painted that rusty red. And then, in particular, the frontage, what that elevation looks like from Evans, yeah. So, and it sounds like, like I said, it might just be taking some additional photography and then putting it together in an exhibit, and that might be able to something that you could get together if this does move to the next meeting on the 3rd of August, then we could certainly consider that. So, or I shouldn't say we, but we need to figure that out by a vote. Those are just my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. I have a question for staff. One of the comments that Mr. Brandt said, if I correctly understood it, is the color red is not city approved. I think that's what I've heard. That could be mistaken. Can you elaborate for me what does that mean?
Absolutely. Board Member Craig and Board Member Gushgary. I believe what Mr. Brand said was, and I'll try to reread it here. He said, "It should be noted that using paint as striping on a building is not acceptable in Scottsdale. Paint is intended to be used to create base and top conditions that accent a building mass. Paint striping as presented in this case is not acceptable." I think he was referring to the striping in particular, and
Okay.
maybe not so much the red itself.
Thank you for the clarification, because I was concerned about the color itself. So thank you for the clarification. The things that doesn't bother me about this site is the fact that it's not visible. When you look at the north elevation, I think there's a building or a business called European Maintenance Facility or things of that sort that blocks that view. From the east elevation, you have the Motor Vehicle Division for the emission test that really blocks the view. Incidentally, my office happens to be a mile and a half east of this area, which is why I know this area really, really well. From the west elevation, we have a building that you will not visibly see it. You don't see this building from the west elevation as you drive Evans. The only elevation that is really open to the public view is the south elevation off of Evans. I drive Raintree regularly, at least 2 or 3 times a day. I've never seen this building off of Raintree. I just haven't seen it. As I said, the only time I saw it is when I go to the Department of Motor Vehicle, driving off of Evans. I'm not suggesting let the building goes the way it is or not because it's not visible. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is not visible to the public at large other than the south elevation. Now, clearly, as you drive Evans, either eastbound or westbound, you will see the corners of those buildings to the south edge. So it's not really as visible to the public as we may think. If you drive it, you will see that. So, and again, that's my thought on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Faki, do you have any comments, please?
I don't have any comment. Actually, my office used to be close to this building, and I'm really not concerned about the visibility from Evans. I concur with Board Guskari as far as the area, but I'm okay with the building as presented with staff stipulation.
Very good. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Any other comments from, can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve case number 45DR 2022, the Evans Corporate Park color branding, as noted in the package. Thank you.
I will second that.
Very good.
Board Member Craig.
I'm going to vote yes, and I'll explain why. After listening to comment from Board Members Gushgari and Faki and their familiarity with the area, I'm comfortable with that. So my vote's a yes.
Board Member Faki.
Yes.
Board Member Gushgari.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
I'm going to vote no, but that's just because I don't know what that south facade is going to look like. Again, I'm not in opposition to the colors. You've already painted the buildings. It wouldn't be a hardship to continue this to August 3rd, other than taking a few photographs, but we're taking a vote. So that's my vote.
Motion approved 3-1.
Very good. That concludes the meeting. However, I would like to recognize Mark and your time here. Thank you. Today's your last day. Appreciate all your work you've been doing, and wish you all the best with your next adventure. And I'd also like to welcome Carissa Rodrigo, our next assistant here, and so we look forward to working with you as well. So with that,
I sincerely second that.
yeah. Very good. So we are adjourned. Thank you.